You're listening to the No Bullshit Vegan Podcast, episode 162. TV host, author, plant-based chef, and vegan of 25 years, Carolyn Scott is on the show to bust 3 myths about vegan food and traveling as a vegan.
Welcome to the No Bullshit Vegan Podcast. Myth-busting and evidence-based advice to help you kick butt with your health and fitness on a vegan diet. Here's your host, Karina Inkster.
Hey, welcome to the show. I'm Karina, your go-to no BS vegan fitness and nutrition coach. Did you know that my coaching team and I have a group training program? It's a lower price point than our regular one-on-one individualized coaching programs, but it still involves accountability, support, and ready-made workout programs. You choose whether you'll work out at home or at the gym, and we'll give you the programs you need to increase your strength, change your body composition, increase energy, and just generally feel awesome. You'll join our team of fantastic vegan folks from around the world in a food and nutrition discussion group, and we'll be keeping very close tabs on you as you complete your workouts. We get a notification every time you complete a session. Head to karinainkster.com/group training for more details and to join us. Introducing today's guest, Carolyn Scott. She's traveled to the North Pole as a vegan and hosts the only vegan TV show on a mainstream travel network. Carolyn is an award-winning and respected figure in the world of healthy lifestyle, as well as special diet cooking and nutrition. Cookbook author, media spokesperson, holistic nutritionist, plant-based chef, and vegan for 25 years, Carolyn busts 3 myths for us. That being Latina makes it hard to be vegan, that it's difficult to be vegan while traveling, and that healthy vegan food is boring and flavorless. With a highly acclaimed cookbook and travel show to her credit, Carolyn has traveled the world for her show, site, and brand, as well as to offer her services as a health and nutrition expert, recipe developer, writer, speaker, consultant, and media spokesperson. She's frequently quoted in national media and regularly appears on television and radio programs, sharing healthy recipes, travel tips, and all things healthy, green, and happy living. Hope you enjoy our conversation. Hey, Carolyn, nice to meet you. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
I'm excited to hear about everything you're doing. I looked through your website and there's so much on there. My God, the info is amazing. Traveling, and I saw a post about workout tips when you're traveling in Singapore. There's a lot of content, but I'd love to get a quick rundown of what the Healthy Voyager is. Let's start there.
Yeah, so I launched the Healthy Voyager back in 2006 just as a travel show. So it was in the infancy of YouTube. I did it as a resource because nothing like that existed, not even on TV. I had been pitching it around and all the majors were like, oh, this is a great idea, but we don't do healthy. And I was like, well, that's kind of the point, guys, So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it myself. I had my own PR firm and I had, been in the industry. So I was like, I'm going to do it myself kind of as a pilot calling card. And then eventually someone will pick it up. Right. And at the time there was no social media. There was nothing. There was YouTube and I think just MySpace.
Mm-hmm.
I had Blogger was my kind of website. Didn't even call it a website. It was a blog as a companion. So old. And over time, it all just kind of grew because social media came into the picture. So it snowballed into what it is today. I never would have imagined, it would be what it is. Back then, it was just kind of a side project that I hoped would get picked up and all that. But now it's the travel show. I'm a chef and a nutritionist too. So on the website, there's recipes. I've got the cookbook. I do a bunch of TV stuff. And because it's kind of an umbrella for all healthy living, like you mentioned, there's, all sorts of fun tips on there from home and lifestyle, but the flagships are still travel and vegan recipes.
Got it. Well, I do want to talk about the travel because I feel like that's one of the main barriers for folks. Not just going vegan in the first place, but existing vegans who are like, I don't know if I can maintain it, or what am I going to do if I travel? So I want to talk about that. But you've been vegan for 25 years. That is awesome. Way before social media. That's 4 years longer than me. And when I went vegan, there was no resources out there. So how did you come to that decision? How did you come to veganism?
I read this book called Fit for Life, which was written in the 70s by some doctor couple. And it wasn't touted as a vegan lifestyle book. It was really just information on your diet, what foods do to your body, food combining, what animal products do in the body and how they affect it. So the very next day after I finished it, I thought, oh, I'm going to do this. So I just went cold turkey, or I like to say cold tofu, and that was it. So, and yeah, like you said, there were no other resources here, even though LA is a vegan mecca. Back then it was, pretty grim. There wasn't even a Whole Foods yet. There was, there were a few funky natural grocery stores. There were a couple places that had vegan options, and then I found a vegan restaurant and I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing." For the most part, I was existing on a lot of salads and cucumber sandwiches and a lot of guacamole, which is great, but it gets old. So I ended up going to school for holistic nutrition and going to culinary school, and really just for my own personal benefit so that I could stay on track.
Hmm.
And I wanted to do it right. And I knew that it was something I wanted to do for the rest of my life, but I couldn't exist just on that stuff. So yeah,
You took it upon yourself. That's the way to do it.
yeah.
Hmm.
And that's the whole reason why I started the show, because even by 2006 when I launched, it definitely was a little more popular, but it was still pretty difficult for not just necessarily vegans, but vegetarians or diabetics or whoever it might be that has a special dietary issue. A lot of the times they fear travel because they're worried about, what am I going to do,
Hmm.
in another country. So they either stick to domestic travel or keeping it safe. And I wanted to prove that you could travel the world and go to all the crazy parts in corners of the world and find something to eat. And now it's my job is easy. It's everywhere.
It is. I feel like I've been living this a long time because I'm vegan and I have food allergies on top of that. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just used to bringing my own food everywhere or ordering off menu, which a lot of people are still uncomfortable with. Like, oh, I got to ask for something that's special order. I'm like, yeah, but they have the ingredients anyways. So I'm kind of used to that, mostly as someone who has food allergies, but it's becoming more popular now and more acceptable, I guess would be the right word, to ask for things and to bring your own things. And
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so let's dive into a little bit. Like, what are some of the places that you visited where people would usually say, oh, I could never be vegan there, or what am I going to eat if I go there as a vegan? And how did you manage those spots?
I've been to the Masai Mara, which is the African bush, and I ate super well there. When I went, and this was in 2008, so it was a long time ago. I packed probably half of my suitcase full of like protein powders and bars and all sorts of stuff. It all came home with me. I ate so well. And I guess the reason being, they cater to a lot of Indian tourists. So they're mainly vegetarian. So there was a wide variety of vegetarian options, and they don't cook with much dairy anyway. So I was really surprised. And now I'm sure it's even crazier. But I've been to the North Pole, and I thought, all right, I'm going to eat my protein bars and my protein powders and that sort of thing. And there was this tiny little town, and there were plenty of options for me. There was even a bakery, and the woman made vegan chocolates for me. I had great Thai food. It's so weird to be in the North Pole and find vegan options. Scandinavia is very open and progressive when it comes to vegan. So I guess it just kind of rubbed off on the little island north of Norway. So
That's amazing. I'm not sure I've ever spoken to someone who's been to the North Pole and B, vegan at that place.
yeah. And we went on a snowmobiling trip from the main town, which has 2,500 inhabitants, out to some old Russian mining town. And it was like a 4 hour snowmobiling trip. And we stopped for lunch. And I thought, thank God I brought my bars. They gave me these awesome meals that you just put hot water in. And it was so tasty. They had vegan ones for me. And I was like, wow, this is pretty killer. So you'd be surprised, where in the world they have options for us. It's getting just easier.
It sounds like vegan MREs, like army food that's actually good.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I was like, oh, it's going to taste terrible. And I was like, oh my God, this is really flavorful.
Wow, that's awesome. So you did mention packing a lot of food though. I mean, this is what I'm used to. My husband and I went to Australia in 2017. That was kind of our last major trip for 3 weeks with only carry-on baggage, and I included a travel didgeridoo, so, like, a good section of my baggage was a musical instrument. Anyways, like, 80% was food just for the journey itself. I mean, it was pretty easy being vegan there, even in Kakadu National Park, where there's not another human in sight for a week, basically. But I had to pack a lot of food, so is that one of your go-to strategies? Just, like, bring a shit ton of food of your own?
I used to, but now it's so easy for me, but I always pack enough protein powders for however many days I'm gone. I get like individual packets or I pack my own and protein bars just because I find that that's the thing that we kind of get gypped on the most, especially like at a hotel breakfast there might be some options like oatmeal or fruit or whatever, but I'm like, "Ah, I need some protein, so
Mhm,
that
mhm.
kind of fuels me for the day. And then it keeps me from, a few hours later being really snacky and being like, oh, I'm going to eat those chips. So that's what I still pack. I don't worry so much about everything else. In certain countries that I'm visiting that I know that maybe the vegetables aren't going to be fresh or they don't have many vegetables, I will pack like little green powder packs that have, a ton of veggies per serving. So I'll do that. But yeah, because it's gotten so easy most of the world over, I don't have to pack as much, but I do always pack my protein.
Yeah, that's what I've seen as well with myself and also all of our clients who travel. The protein is still the thing. And I feel like that's changing in certain areas, but I feel like there's still a lot of work to be done. And better safe than sorry. So better pack it at this point, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's always like a pasta option or a good, grain bowl or something like that. I'm like, that's good, but I need some more protein. So it really does help to have that extra oomph with you on the go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. That's really cool. So, any other trip highlights of like really cool places you've been that you surprisingly could be vegan at and didn't have to bring your own food?
The Galapagos, it was like a schooner, kind of looked like a pirate ship trip around all the islands, and
Hmm.
it only fits like 16 guests, and they cook on the ship, they do everything, and they knew I was vegan, but I thought, it's gonna just be a lot of rice and beans, whatever, fine. It was so fantastic. Every meal, I was so excited at what they cooked up, flavorful, delicious.
Wow.
So again, I knocked my socks off, where I go in with very low expectations and I'm like, all right. And I come out just wowed. Yeah, that was another one that was great. Yeah.
That's awesome. Maybe that's part of the deal is actually going in with low expectations. That might be part of the strategy, actually.
That way you're not going to be disappointed. You get either what you get or you're pleasantly surprised.
I mean, I've mentioned this a whole bunch of times on the show before, but even just how things have changed in the last 5 years in North America and elsewhere in just veganism and acceptance and options. It's skyrocketed. I mean, we went vegan back in the TVP days where people used to call us vegans, remember that?
Yeah.
Like, wait, what does
Yeah,
that mean? Can you have
totally.
a chicken salad then? Like, people had no clue at that point.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, I didn't even really use the term vegan. I think I knew it, but it wasn't so prevalent. So when I'd go out to eat, I'd be like, "Well, I can't eat." You'd have to do the list, right? Like, "I don't eat meat, I don't eat dairy, I don't eat cheese." And they're like, "What do you eat?" I'm like, "Well, I can eat a lot of stuff. It's just not on your menu." you know? But yeah, I
Right.
remember having to list it always, and now you just say vegan and people know.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So I would love to talk about being a Latina and veganizing some cultural meals,
Mhm.
because this is another thing that I hear quite a bit from folks from different cultural backgrounds, all sorts, who are a little bit like there might be some family tensions around cultural traditions and foods. There's easier and more challenging ways to navigate these types of things. So I'd love to hear from you how it's been for you, like veganizing Colombian food, presumably traditional dishes, how that works within your family. Like, how was that process?
I did that pretty early on just because I was like, "Oh, I wanna see if I can experiment and kinda make it taste somewhat similar to what I grew up with." So, there were the simple thing I mean, arepas were super easy to veganize. Certain of our, like, breakfast drinks was easy to veganize with soy milk at the time. But my family was actually really great about it. I'm super fortunate that they were cool with it. And I mean, I was already living 3,000 miles away from my family, so I didn't have to worry about it that much. So it was just when I'd go back to visit for holidays, but I would cook my own stuff, and inevitably everyone would want to try it. My mom ended up going vegan probably 15 years
Oh,
ago.
wow. That's awesome.
I've lost track now. So it's somewhere between 10 and 15. Yeah. So it's really great. So when she comes to visit me or I go there, we just go crazy. We just try every vegan thing that's around and we cook. So I'm actually leaving in a couple days to go home for Thanksgiving. And so I cook the whole meal and everyone loves it. So I've gotten really fortunate in that regard that I don't have to argue with anyone or feel weird. So yeah, I had a cousin and her whole family went vegan with her kids. So yeah, I like to lead by example and just kind of be like, well, I'm going to cook my stuff, and if you guys want to eat it or you want to bring your other stuff, great, that sort of thing. So I've gotten really lucky, but I love veganizing Latin food and the things that I grew up with. And now again, it's so easy. And when I go back, there are plenty of vegan places now that serve the stuff that I was missing, so long ago. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I've had similar experiences. I'm half German. My mom is from Germany. So, certain foods that have cream or butter, I mean, those things are so easy to veganize at this point. There's just like exact replacement options, right?
Hmm.
So, all the special Christmas food that you have only that time of year, there's all sorts of Latvian influence as well, Baltic German. So, we have some traditional meals and items that are Latvian, also easy to veganize.
Hmm.
Uh, but what about folks who come from really meat heavy backgrounds? There was one person that I interviewed on the podcast a while back who is Cuban and who said that there's a lot of pushback in different communities around like not eating meat and things that are a little harder to veganize.
Oh yeah,
So, like, what would you recommend for folks?
I can definitely understand that. Uh, I think you kind of have to know what you're dealing with, so you can't get mad at your family for hundreds of years of of just how they've lived and expect them to overnight be like, "Oh," but if they're pushing back and making it difficult for you, I think you have to kind of say, "Look, this is my choice. I'm not asking you to do it. I'm perfectly happy with my choice. This is why I do it. Don't worry, I'll cook for myself, or you don't have to worry about me or figure out a dish for me." Because I think that's the problem. I think they don't know how to veganize something. So, people kind of tend to be uncomfortable with things they don't know. So if you make it easy for them, say, "Oh my gosh, don't worry about me. You don't have to cook anything special for me. I'll handle it. I'll take care of myself and I'll make a dish and you're happy, welcome to try it." So just, I always think being positive at all times and not being aggro with anyone tends to kind of soften everyone. And people will either come around or just say, "Look, okay, yeah, we're not going to cook for you and we don't want to try that, but you do you." So I think, some families are very stuck in their ways and don't want to change or accept certain things. And I get it. I mean, there's so many topics like that, and vegan's just one of them. So I think as long as you can just stay positive and not be insulting to your family or your friends that are pushing back, that also shows that you're the tolerant one that's like, "Look, I totally get it. Like, if you're happy doing that, I'm happy doing this. We can still coexist and be happy and I still love you." That sort of thing.
Right. Those are all really good points. Leading by example, having a generally positive outlook.
Mhm.
I assume engaging in conversations, as appropriate, but not lecturing people because that never works. And also the vegan food thing.
And I think it's really important to cook for them. Yeah. To kind of to get in through their stomachs, be
Right,
like, "Just try
exactly.
it,"
Yeah,
you know? And if you don't wanna try it, fine, but most often, people are really surprised, and they're like, "Wow, this is really good," you know?
that's the way to do it. I find the desserts are usually the way to go.
Yeah, desserts, mhm.
But any sort of like, shepherd's pie or any really good entree, anything that's like, Colombian food that you veganized sounds amazing.
Mhm.
That would be really cool. That's the way to get them in the door.
Yeah, around the holidays, most of the time, the sides are so easily veganizable, so even just with traditional, American Thanksgiving, let's say, like there's all sorts of veggies and there's the mashed potatoes and all that stuff is so easily veganizable without the butter or the cream and no one
Mhm.
notices the difference. So it's like, come on guys, no one's going to know. And then yeah, you're right with the dessert like cookies. It's so ridiculous. People are like vegan cookies. I'm like, do you taste the egg or the butter in your cookies? I mean, come on. Like it's just part of the whole. I was like, so yeah, cookies and sides are such a great kind of introduction for people around the holidays.
Yeah. I'm part of this Facebook group, Rate My Plate, and it's just like, it's a cesspool of anti-veganism. I'm basically just there to watch the train wrecks.
Oh no.
And it's to the point where like someone posts this amazing looking meal, like 5-course dinner, whatever, it looks incredible. And later in the comments, people find out that it's vegan, and the people who have previously rated it as like 10 out of 10 are like, no, not interested anymore because it's vegan.
Yeah.
First of all, it's a photo on a screen, so you haven't tasted the food.
Yeah.
And second, like you wouldn't have even known unless this person had written, oh yeah, by the way, it's plant-based.
Yeah. Exactly. It's just the immediate, just knee jerk hatred. And you're like, all right, some people just can't be reasoned with. And to be honest, that's not even what they're mad at. It's like, what are you really mad at?
No,
They just want to be mad.
that's a good point. Well, that's the current state of the internet is basically that.
Just immediate hate and anger.
Yep. Well, this is why it's important to have a more positive outlook, right? So instead of lecturing people, instead of like nitpicking, it's just you do you, as you said, right? Lead by example, be positive, make a lot of insanely delicious food for people to share.
Yeah.
That's what I found works. And then, the people who are kind of on the edge or who are interested or who have questions, they'll come to you and say, hey, I was thinking A, B, and C, or hey, how could I possibly veganize this recipe that I found online? Or, the questions kind of start trickling in naturally, I think.
Exactly. And I think because if you have a positive energy about you, people are more likely to come talk to you and ask you questions, the ones that want to. Yeah, I'm always of the mind of like, I don't need to shove my views into someone's face because I don't want someone shoving theirs into mine. So, you know.
Exactly. Well, speaking of food, one of the myths that you really like to bust is that vegan food is boring or doesn't have any flavor or any of those other adjectives. So, you as a chef with your background, I can only imagine how you are busting that myth. But you did mention previously that something you like doing is veganizing the treat foods, like the more calorie dense things we
Mhm,
would generally have as treats.
mhm.
So, what does that look like for you?
Well, it's just about that time of year where I do
Right.
that.
Me
Ag
too.
against my will, against my will. I'm like, "Oh, here it comes. I'm gonna bake up a storm." But yeah, I love the holidays. I go to my old traditional recipes that I've been baking with my mom since I was a kid that I veganized a long time ago. I will double batch them every year. I'm like, "I'm just gonna do a single batch. I'm gonna give them all away." That's a lie. I'll never
Oh
do
yeah,
that.
that never
Nope.
happens. I try and
I
fail
know.
every
And then
year.
I'm like, no, I spent time making this. I spent money. Those are my cookies. I want to eat them. It's once a year. Come January, it's like, uh-oh. But but yeah, I think for me, veganizing treats over the holidays is my favorite. From yeah, the traditional cookies to messing with different cakes and pies and really just having fun in the kitchen like with that and inviting a friend over or when I'm visiting my folks, baking with my mom, things like that. But yeah, and especially being Latina, I grew up with so many flavors in food, so I'm a big stickler for flavor in my food. So I love debunking the flavorless vegan food and putting my Latin spin on everything and making sure it's just bursting with flavor.
Are there some Latin treats that are traditional this time of year?
Treats. I was never a big fan of like our stuff. Like my mom used to love this stuff called arequipe, which is basically like a caramel pudding, but it was just too sweet for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm much more of like when it comes to treats, more like American style, like cakes and cookies, that sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah, I was never a huge fan. And because I grew up here, I was very, Americanized with that kind of stuff. So yeah, like growing up in South Florida, I loved key lime pie. So that's a go-to. And then of course the holidays like pecan pie and pumpkin pie and yeah, pumpkin cheesecake. Now I'm getting hungry.
Oh yeah, me too. So does that factor in then to the type of recipes that you have on your website, which by the way is healthyvoyager.com for folks. We'll have show notes as well, but in case they want to check it out now. Yeah, so does that come into like what you test for the website or what you post there?
Gosh, I've had the site for 17 years, so there's a lot of recipes on there. A lot.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, but it's not just holiday stuff. It's, year round, different sorts of recipes. But around the holidays, I do compile like lists, like menus of like everything you can cook. So for next week for Thanksgiving, there's everything from, soups and salads and sides and sauces to desserts and what to do with leftovers. And then come the holidays, I'll do recipe post that compiles all my favorite holiday recipes for drinks and beverages, and then another one for cookies and cakes, and then another one for the dishes and sides. So yeah, this time of year, there's lots of recipes on the site. And then year round, there's everything. And every holiday, I always have something because I love special holiday and traditional recipes. So yeah, you can go get extra hungry looking at the recipes on the site right now.
Oh yeah, that sounds about right. So what's the deal with the show that you have? Is that still ongoing? What's the kind of general premise and what do you share with folks?
Yeah, so it was the flagship show, The Healthy Voyager, that started back in '06, and it's still going, and it's now airing on a mainstream travel network called Go Traveler. So
Oh,
it's
cool.
the only vegan travel show on a mainstream travel channel. So yeah, there's people like Bourdain and Rick Steves and all sorts of people on this channel, and me. So that
How
channel
cool is
is,
that?
yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's a free channel, which is awesome. So it's like a Netflix for specifically travel shows, but it's free and you can download it on any streaming device. So Apple TV or Roku, Fire Stick, Chrome, all those. You can watch it on an app on your phone or on your computer. So if you're bored this holiday season, you can cozy up and dream of travel and watch a bunch of shows on there.
How awesome is that? So
Yeah,
since '06, that's a lot of seasons. That's pretty
it's a
impressive.
lot of seasons.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And also being the only vegan show on a mainstream travel network. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. And I'm sure that that's been the case probably the whole time, right? Since '06.
Yeah. In '06, I was the only vegan, when I speak to like Latin media, I'm like, I was the first Latina host, so yeah, it was definitely, I didn't think about it back then, but now I'm like, oh, yeah, back then I was the first, doing this kooky stuff on my
Blazing some
own. And
trails.
this was before cell phones or making, content easily. It was like a proper big digital camera that shot to digital tape. And then you had to take the tape and digitize it to then
Oh my goodness.
go ahead and edit it. It was not easy. Yeah.
So do you travel the world and share with folks kind of the vegan angle and like what you're doing for food and discoveries? Like what's the content like?
Early on, it was just vegan food. And now it's, that's still obviously a part of it, but it's adventure, sustainability, culture,
Mhm.
just really unique stuff. So it's a full travel scope. So every episode's a different region or city. Yeah. So I do all kinds of crazy stuff like jump out of planes or go meet a local farmer or, yeah. But there's definitely always food in there.
So was the North Pole one of the episodes?
Yeah, it's called Svalbard,
Mm.
which is an island off the coast of Norway. And that was killer. That was really killer. Yeah, we did snowmobiling, we did ice climbing. I went to the Seed Vault. I don't know if you've heard
Oh,
of
I
that, the
have heard
Global
of
Seed
that.
Vault.
Yes.
Yeah,
Wow.
which it's not open to the public, but because I was there, I was like, hey, can we get in there and film it? And they were like, oh, oddly enough, it's not ever really open. But one of the guys that runs it happened to be in town and was like, yeah, we'll open it for you. So I was super fortunate.
Wow.
Not
Not
that
a
it's
lot of
like,
people have seen that.
I know it's just just a big warehouse, but it's carved into the mountain because of the permafrost. It stays cold, so it doesn't have to be refrigerated. And it's cool to be like, wow, all the seeds of the world are here for safekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just a really neat, thing to see and showcase.
Isn't climate change affecting that, though? I mean, if the ice melts, that's going to be a huge problem, isn't it?
Probably, I'm sure they would probably, move it, but for whatever reason, it's still kind of holding up over there.
Well, that's good news so far. Well, that's very cool. Awesome. Well, is there anything that we have missed? Oh, the book, actually.
Yes,
You're
my
a
cookbook.
cookbook author.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my first cookbook came out in 2011. 2011? Yeah. Wrote it in 2010, came out in 2011. And then 2 years ago, I'm so losing track of time.
Oh, yeah. I have no sense of time either.
I launched the 10-year anniversary of that book. So I kind of went back and I retooled some stuff and, because so much has changed in 10 years from products and techniques
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. So I kind of tweaked some recipes and then I added more. So the original had 150 recipes and this one has 175 recipes. So additions and stuff. So yeah, so it's the Healthy Voyager's Global Kitchen, and that's available on Amazon.
Wow, cool. So are these recipes from all over, things that you've collected during your travels?
Yeah, every chapter is either a different country or region, and I've veganized very traditional recipes from each place. So it's really fun. So you can taste the flavors of the world without having to leave your kitchen.
How awesome is that? That reminds me of the beginning of lockdown when these Airbnb experiences, the online experiences, were just burgeoning in popularity. So my friend and I did a whole bunch of cooking classes online, obviously,
Hmm.
during the lockdown with folks in India and Morocco and Kenya. And, there's all these chefs showing you, or home chefs even, not even pro ones,
Yeah,
showing you how to make traditional meals. And my husband and I did a pakora making class with someone who owns a restaurant in India, like
yeah,
pretty amazing. So it kind of reminds me of that. You can just have this book as your travel guide within your own kitchen.
yeah. It's really fun.
That's very cool. Well, anything you want to leave our listeners with? It's been fantastic speaking with you.
Yeah, likewise. I guess if you're interested in finding out more, watching the show, or getting tips and recipes, healthyvoyager.com is the main hub. And then I'm on every social media platform as Healthy Voyager, except for YouTube, that's Healthy Voyager TV. And then, of course, you can download the Go Traveler app if you want to watch the show there. And then if you don't, you can watch a bunch of them, all of them on my website. So, yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. I just might, well, now I have my weekend plan. Just might
Yeah.
cue all of those up.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Carolyn, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Carolyn, thanks again for taking the time to speak with me. Access our show notes at nobullshitvegan.com/162 to connect with Carolyn. And don't forget to check out our group training program at karinainkster.com/group training. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for listening to the No Bullshit Vegan podcast at nobullshitvegan.com.